Right. I'm dying. Okay, I'm gonna get everything up. Stream elements. Let me get my stream elements up. Okay, yeah, I'm not fucking doxing anything. Okay, dashboard. Go to this. Do this. Cause we're good. We're good. Cause we're wholesome. We're wholesome. That's why. Okay. I'm so so tired. Sleepy. Sleepy. Oh, I should probably add everyone. Everyone. I'll give everyone a little bit to pile. Until then, I'm just gonna yap. I need to start reading more of my Deleuze books and my I need to start reading more of the Ignorant Schoolmaster. It's good. Um, I think what I'm going to do is I think I might do a thing today. I think I might do the research stream tonight. I should be able to finish by the time that I already had it, and so I might just take a little break. We might do the research stream tonight. I'm seriously thinking about it, but we might do it tomorrow. I might just do it tomorrow. I might just decide to work on stuff today, and I might do it. I'll do the research stream tomorrow. I'll do the research stream tomorrow. So, probably, but there's a chance, depending on how I'm feeling after this, that it happens today. That it happens today. But no promises. No promises. No promises. So freaking exhausted. So freaking exhausted. Okay. Well, I feel like I've delayed long enough. And I don't want to delay anymore. How to bring the collective together. The lengthy chapter preceding this one sought to make it clear that the terms nature and society do not designate domains of reality. Instead, they refer to a quite specific form of public organization. Not everything is political, perhaps, but politics gathers everything together. So long as we agree to redefine politics as the entire set of tasks that allow progressive composition of a common world. Now, professional politicians are not the only ones who have taken on these tasks. For a long time in the West, scientists have occupied a preponderant place, thanks to the kingly powers they have held by natural right. Political philosophy, in spite of Hobbes, has never really understood the gospel text according to which every kingdom against itself is headed for Rome. Matthew 12:25. We need to get fucking June in here. We need to get my friend June in here. Yeah. I messaged her. I don't think anything will come of it, but we can pretend. We can pretend. For political philosophy has gone on focusing exclusively on the world of human politics, as if there were nothing the matter, leaving most questions to be sorted out elsewhere, in secret, out of court in an assembly of non-human objects that were undertaking mysterious operations to decide what nature was made of and what sort of unity we formed with nature. By dividing public life into two incommensurable houses, the old constitution led only to paralysis, since it achieved only premature unity for nature and endless dispersion for cultures. The old constitution thus finally resulted in the formation of two equally illicit assemblies. The first, brought together under the auspices of capital S science, was illegal because it defined the common world without recourse to due process. The second was illegitimate by birth, since it lacked the reality of the things that had been given over to the other house and had to settle for power relations, from a multiplicity of irreconcilable viewpoints, from Machiavellian cleverness alone. Also, one second, I'm gonna go check some cleverness alone. Also, one second, Okay, I sound fine. I was fucking with things, and I was worried that I fucked it up somehow, but I didn't. So it's all good. It's all okay. The first had reality, but no politics. The second had politics and mere social construction. Both had, in reserve, a quick shortcut that could bring discussion to an end. Irrefutable reason, indisputable force, right and might, knowledge and power. Each house threatened to exterminate the other. Only the third estate, the collective, suffered from this long Cold War, for it was forever deprived of a scientific and political competence by the shortcuts of power or those of reason. Ah, God, it's so good. He's kind of just going over he's Latour one of the big things in Latour is fiction. Latour uses fiction in very particular ways, and it shows in the way he writes, where he does write in a very particular way that is, I feel, probably very off-putting for a lot of people, especially because of the stuff he ends up covering in the very technical and also scientific ways he ends up talking about things. Still, the lessons of Chapter 1 are exclusively negative. If we have understood that nature cannot serve as a model for politics, we still do not know how to find a better one than nature. This is the considerably more difficult question that we must now confront. How can we draw up a constitution that will allow us to achieve a common world through due process? But first of all, what term should we use to describe what will replace the kingdom divided against itself? The venerable word republic is admirably suited to our task, if we agree to bring out the overtones of the underlying Latin word race, thing. As has been frequently noted, it is a political ecology found again in the res publica, the public thing, the ancient etymology that has linked the word for thing and the word for juridical assembly. It's the dawn of time. Ding and thing. Res and reus. Reus. In media res reus. Isin reus. I don't know many Latin phrases otherwise. And by many, I mean, like, I don't know any. That's what I actually mean when I say that. Hello, Tikas. Hello. Sorry, I was reading. 237. We have to go to the glossary. The glossary. The glossary. So there's the Republic, and there's what's the other thing? Okay. Guess you're not. Oh, Republic. Republic does not designate the assembly of humans among themselves, nor the universality of the human detached from all the traditional archaic bonds. On the contrary, by taking another look at the etymology of res publica, the public thing, it designates the collective in its effort to undertake an experimental search for what unifies it. It is the collective assembly according to due process and faithful to the order of the Constitution. And was the other term he used the old regime? The old regime. This deliberately simplistic term and the more polemical term, cave, is used to bring out the contrast between the bicameralism of nature and society on the one hand, and that of the new constitution, which allows a state of law on the other. Just as the French Revolution called into question the legitimacy of the aristocratic power of divine right, political ecology calls into question the aristocratic power of divine, capital S, science.
Then 260.
And then the first one for this one is, I call this republic a parliament of things at the end of my inquiry into the moderns. Latour, We Have Never Been Modern, 1993. Since then, thanks to a contract with the Ministry of the Environment, I have had the opportunity to study local parliaments on water. Water district councils charged by the law on water conservation and quality to represent portions of rivers. See Latour and the Borges, 1995. Oh my, that seemed interesting. That seems good. And then second, and this is about res and reus and ding and thing, or ding and ting. I think ding, is it thing? Ding and thing. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Michel Serres has often made this observation, and he made it the essential argument of statues. See Serres, 1987. I assume that's statues. See especially page 110. See the fascinating study by Jan Thomas on the juridical origin of the res. When the res appears in this function, it is not as a seat where the unilateral mastery of a subject is exercised. If the res is an object, it has this function above all in a debate or an argument. A common object that opposes and unites two protagonists within a single relation. And further on, its objectivity is ensured by the common agreement whose place of origin is controversy, juridical debate. This is him making his argument towards the common world again. Kind of. It's him talking about the common world again. Through this guy. Where it's like, in this, it's the common agreement gives its objectivity in this debate. Um, 54? Yeah. The empire of the modernist constitution, now on the decline, had made us tend to forget that a thing emerges before anything else as a scandal at the heart of an assembly that carries on a discussion requiring a judgment brought in common. And thing, it is thing, it's not ting, it's thing. But thing is actually very important for Latour. The etymology of the word is very important. He uses it. Latour loves to play with etymology, stuff like that, to make his arguments. We're using the term in the etymological sense that always refers to a matter at the heart of an assembly in which a discussion takes place, requiring a judgment reached in common, in contrast to object. The etymology of the word thus contains the index of the collective that we're trying to assemble here. See also republic. He went over a little bit, and he probably will go over it earlier. Later. Sorry, mixing time up. mixing time words up. Um, thing, the origin of it, the etymology of it, and in most languages today, still there's sometimes this like thing, this remains, where uh, the word that like became thing in like English or whatever, etymologically, um, meant like a judicial assembly of some chords, something that wasn't like it wasn't like how we think now. We say, "Oh, that thing over there." It is something kind of banal, known of. When before it designated another something very different, and Latour's playing with that. Uh, Latour likes playing with etymology in that way. This way of looking at things does not entail an anthropomorphism that would take us back to the pre-modern past, a past that is only exoticism on the part of the moderns, of course, but rather the end of a ruinous anthropomorphism through which objects, indifferent to the fate of humans, were in the habit of intervening from the outside and acting without due process to sweep away the work of political assemblies. 1 second. My hair is getting in my face and I don't like it. It's fucking annoying me. There we go, it's fixed. Indeed, appearances notwithstanding, the famous indifference of the cosmos to human passions offers the oddest of anthropomorphisms, since it claims to give form to humans while silencing them through the incontestable power of objectivity devoid of all passion. The non-human had been kidnapped and turned into stones that could be thrown at the assembled demos. The people, the public. Demos means like the public, I think. Look up. Demos. Demos. Whatever. Yeah. Common people. Yeah. I assume it's probably much more specific than that, but it's probably a little bit more specific than that, but it's the common people or the public, the whatever. By using objectivity to short circuit political procedures, people had dared to confuse the sciences with this shortcut authorized by violence, and to do so in the name of the highest morality and the most delicate of virtues. With nature, people sought to reason, that is, to force their way through. Yes, a genuine intellectual impostor, but one that has fortunately lost its effect. The only innovation our project offers is that it seeks a successor for this kingdom divided against itself, by drawing upon the resources of the third estate, resources that prejudice alone confused with the gathering of slaves held in chains in the cave, prisoners of the social. Now, the emergence of nature no longer comes into play to paralyze the progressive composition of the common world. We have to become capable of convoking the collective that will be charged from now on, as its name indicates, with collecting the multiplicity of associations of humans and non-humans without resorting to the brutal segregation between primary and secondary qualities that has made it possible up to now to exercise the kingly functions in secret. I guess I should probably explain for people who haven't done before. So let's do a little bit of a recap. I was going to do something. I was going to say something. What are the two estates? The two estates are society, and or cultures or politics, and capital and capital in nature in the singular. There is politics, there are societies, there are cultures, but there is one nature. And what are primary and secondary qualities? Well, primary qualities are they are basically all the things we do agree about. Um, yeah, let's say it like that. They are the things we do agree about. And secondary qualities are things like color, taste, smell. Um, they're things that are put onto the psyche, while primary qualities are usually the things given to science. They're given to capital S science, as he calls it. Um, and um, for Latour, the purpose of such a nature is only to short circuit politics in some way. It is to its goal is to destroy it completely. The facts are just the facts, and um, when people don't consider that things might actually be a bit more complicated, the facts might not just be the facts. Um, there's a line from a book I love. It's called "To Build a Fire." To build a fire, and I'm going to reference it now because I really like it. I really like it. The trouble with him was that he was not able to imagine. He was quick and ready in the things of life, but only in the things, and not in their meanings. 50 degrees below zero meant 80 degrees of frost. Such facts told him that it was cold and uncomfortable, and that was all. That led him to consider his weaknesses as a creature affected by temperature, nor did he think about man's general weakness, able to live only within narrow limits of heat and cold. There did not lead him to thoughts of heaven and the meaning of a man's life. The degrees below zero meant a bite of frost that hurt and that must be guarded against with the use of mittens, ear coverings, warm moccasins, and thick socks. The degrees below zero was to him nothing more than 50 degrees below zero. That it should be more important than that. The thought that never entered his head. I really like that line. I think it's I think some interpreting. Not really. There's not really that much interpreting. Latour is kind of doing a similar thing in a lot of ways. Um, Facts aren't just the facts. Facts are more important than we make them out to be. They are not banal things. They are actually incredibly complex, sophisticated renderings of things um, that are made banal. Um, because part of their amazing features, one of their amazing features, is that they like render their own production mute. We can't see the production process anymore. We don't no one thinks about how their car works. No one thinks about how the trains run. No one thinks about any of these things, but they are. But without this, we wouldn't be able to do it how this technology we're using right now works. But it's all very important and it's all very complex, and it could have failed. It could have failed horribly. Um, Instead of getting the internet, when we did, we could have gotten it 10 years later. Maybe we could have gotten it 10 years earlier. Um, all it would have taken was like a few things to go wrong to destroy like research, like whatever vital research was necessary to make it. I don't know much about this, so there might be like some flaws with this example specifically, but with a lot of stuff, with a lot of science, like the operation is very fragile in like especially like before now where we have like digital stuff where we can digitize stuff and not have to keep it purely like in like physical notes or something like that. Like there's a lot of stuff. Like there's so much can go wrong, and even now, stuff can still go wrong and destroy so much research. And whatever it was, and it could have been amazing and awesome and great, and it just go away, because something got corrupted, because labels accidentally got switched, um, whatever it may be, you know. This competency on the part of the third estate this competency on the part of the third estate does exist, but it lies hidden in the form of a double problem of representation. The old constitution required us to treat separately epistemology, seeking to know on what condition an exact representation of external reality is possible; political philosophy, seeking to know on what condition a representative can represent his fellows faithfully. No one can recognize what these two questions have in common. Now, since this radical distinction between them has become the very sign of the highest moral virtue, we must take every precaution, they say, not to mix questions of nature with questions of politics, not to confuse being with what ought to be. And then we go to 261. And then footnote 3. It is this famous opposition between Boyle and Hobbes, Chapin and Schaeffer, 1985. The double proposition has taken on its clearest form for me, but it now forms the common program of a large part political epistemology. I love this. I love this guy. I love this guy. It is by the absence of mixing, we are told, that we have always recognized and continue to recognize the virtue of a moral philosophy. History during all this time, full of sound and fury, fortunately took on the responsibility of doing just the opposite, mixing natures and politics in all possible forms, and over the last several decades, finally imposing the necessity of an explicit political epistemology in place of the old epistemology police. An anecdote will allow us to illustrate the passage from a divided kingdom to the republic of things. The philosophy of the sciences has always used the Galileo affair to its advantage. Assembled in a room, a conclave of princes and cardinals is discussing how to lead the world, what their flock must believe in order to go to heaven. In another room, I at the far end of the palace, in his study turned into a laboratory, Galileo is deciphering the laws that govern the world and make the heavens go round. Between the two rooms, there is no possible overlap, because the concern in the first one is with multiple beliefs, and in the second, with a single reality. On the one hand, there is the multiplicity of secondary qualities that maintain all human beings in a state of illusion. On the other, there is one human being dealing with truth, alone with nature, defining the primary qualities that are invisible to everyone else. Here indeed, we have the two-house collective of the old Constitution. In the fall of 1997, in Kyoto, there was just one conclave to welcome the great figures of this world: princes, lobbyists, heads of state, captains of industry, scientists, and researchers from every discipline, and to decide in common how the planet was faring and how we should all behave toward it from now on to preserve the quality of our sky. I always say this, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. You can just ask. You can just freaking ask. Michel Serres commented in advance on the Kyoto conference when he wrote masterfully about Galileo. Science won all the rights 3 centuries ago now by appealing to the earth, responded by moving. So the prophet became king. In our turn, we are appealing to an absent authority, and we cry, like Galileo, before the court of his successors, former prophets turned king. The earth is moved. The immemorial, fixed earth, provided the conditions and foundations of our lives, is moving. The fundamental earth is trembling. I like that. I like Sayers. Sayers is good. Sayers is really good actually. That's my hot take. Sayers is actually fucking amazing. He's so he's so fucking beautiful. He's such a beautiful writer. He's making the same because Sayers is doing the same thing that uh that Latour is doing, but in a different way. Um Latour and him are like intimately linked. They're like pasteurization of France is dedicated to him. Um this book has had constant like references and uses of him, and most of his books have at least one reference to him because he's insanely important. He's like he really is. Um, Yet the Kyoto Conference did not settle for bringing together the two ancient assemblies, one for politicians and one for science, in a third house that would be bigger, broader, more organic, more synthetic, more holistic, and more complex. No, politicians and scientists, industrians and militants found themselves on the benches of the same assembly without being able to count any longer on the ancient advantages of salvation from the outside by capital F science, or to murmur with a shrug of the shoulders. What do these arguments matter to us? The earth will keep on turning without us, whatever we may say. We have gone from two houses to a single collective. Politics has to get back to work without the transcendence of nature. Here is the historical phenomenon that we are forcing ourselves to comprehend. 261 again. The new history of the sciences is noticing retrospectively that this was always the case, even for Galileo, Boyle, Newton, and Kelvin. These great scientists have never really been seated apart since they established the division whose genealogy is traced in detail by the above-mentioned historians. We have never been modern, even in capital S science, especially in science. Never. Never been modern. And the use of the past perfect tense is important, as he notes. Fucking love that line. I love that line. Ah. Oh my god. Latour is, I don't know how to read him without, like, fangirling. Because he writes so well. Oh, I should probably do that. I should probably make it so I can see everyone's messages just in case. Instead of just top chat. The end of nature is not the end of our difficulties. On the contrary, we discover the precipices over which we risk falling at every step. We come to understand the advantages that the immoderate use of the notion of nature gave our predecessors. By using this notion to short circuit both politics and the scientists, they simplified all obstacles as if by magic. But we who are no longer either enchanted or fascinated by nature after the forced march of approach in the previous chapter find ourselves up against the wall. That is, ready to get down to work, provided that our readers, like the Hebrews in the desert, do not start to miss the bittersweetness of the onions of Egypt. Wait, hold on. Hold on, wait a second. I I want to play the fucking Veggie Tales thing where they're just in the desert. Veggie Tales. We were slaves. That's so good. Wait, we were in slavery. Uh, uh, but I won't. But I shan't. I'll listen to it after though. Uh, hold on. I need to send this to someone. We'll take a break. Okay, but that was just kind of like the introduction to everything. We have to set up work. We have to figure out how to get past the notion of nature before was not without a purpose. It served a very particular purpose. And now we have to figure out how to get on without it. Now that the magic is gone, now that we are no longer enchanted. So yeah. Let us continue. We only have like 5 more pages left. And then I'll stop for today because I normally stop after like 10 pages. I like doing that. 10 pages is good. I might do a stream later. I might not. I haven't decided yet. But keep on choogling. Wait, I can't full screen. Because then you can't see all of the page. I just realized. Because the way I cut it. Difficulties in convoking the collective. How are we going to manage to convoke the collective on new grounds? There is no shortage of ecological thinkers who clamor to get beyond a disastrous opposition between man and his environment. Why not conceive the convocation quite simply as the reunification of things and people, objects and subjects? At first glance, it seems that if we were to bring the two terms together, the set and its complement, we would achieve the sought-for unity very quickly and without any shots being fired. We would find ourselves in a unified kingdom upon which the division into two houses would no longer impose a state of apartheid. Political ecology would then be defined as the conjunction of ecology and politics, things and people, nature and society. It would suffice to join the two assemblies together to solve the problem of the composition of the common world, and thus have an excellent constitution at our disposal. Unfortunately, the collective, appearances notwithstanding, cannot be achieved by simply a simple adding together of nature and society. This is the first difficulty. If it were enough to bring man and nature together in order to resolve ecological crises, the constitutional crisis that ecological crises have unleashed would have been resolved long ago, whereas in fact, it is just beginning. Crises manifest themselves in the disappearance of nature. They manifest themselves even more clearly in the disappearance of the traditional means for convoking the two assemblies of nature and society. To bring the two together would be to commit a crime against knowledge, morality, and politics simultaneously. $261. That's not what I wanted, right? 261. 6. For once, the epistemology police is in agreement with political epistemology, but for opposite reasons. Such is the background for what have been called the science wars. We now know why nature used to make it possible to subject the human assembly to a permanent threat of salvation by capital S silence that paralyzed it in advance. Conversely, did I not scroll down? Yeah, I think I scrolled down actually. Conversely, the prison of the social world made it possible to subject the assembly of nature to a permanent threat of pollution by violence. The two houses that were constituted for their mutual paralysis thus clearly cannot be brought together without further ado. The procedure for convoking them has first to be redefined from top to bottom. For the time being, there is nothing in political philosophy, in the conception of the social world devised by the human sciences, that allows us to replace nature. It is thus useless to hope that a natural contract will intervene to repair the interlimitations of the old social contracts, as if one could simply bring together in one great whole the subjects and objects constituted over the years in order to wage the most pitiless of cold wars against one another. 261. Serres has nevertheless gone further in questioning the oppositions, thanks to his original use of law. So, since its establishment, science has played the role of natural law. Its time-honored expression conceals a profound contradiction, that between the arbitrary and the necessary. Science conceals the same contradiction in exactly the same place. Physics is natural law. It has played this role since its dawning. No, actually, I don't think it actually is. Oh, no, it is. No, it actually is. No, it actually is. I read a little bit more. Um, but out of disdain for politics and even more for the social sciences, he has kept the premature oneness of nature intact. Indeed, he has given it a new lease on life. Yeah. Serge is still good. He is still good. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, no, it actually, I forgot about malfeasance. Yeah, it actually completely makes sense that Serres would go in that direction. Oh, we're not on that page. Oh, wait. We are on this page. I was right. No matter how long its digestive process takes, the boa constrictor of politics cannot swallow the elephant of nature. A body produced to be foreign to the social body will never be socialized, or else the chemistry of digestion will have to be altered. Political ecology is doing just this, but it is still unaware of what lessons it can draw from this process. 1 second. I want to close my curtains. The temptation of globalization appears all the more irresistible in that ecological crises are translated most often by the disappearance of everything external to the human world. Every reserve for human action, every discharge by means of which one could, up to now, in the delicious euphemism invented by the economists, externalize actions. Sorry, I'm struggling with this. I actually am gonna go to the little glossary for once because I am a little bit confused. But I think it might just be because I'm already tracer. So yeah, maybe what it is. Exteriorization, externalizations. Economists use the expression externalities to designate entities that cannot be taken into account, but that play an important role, positive or negative, in the calculations. Here, I give it a more general and more political meaning to replace the customary notion of nature external to the social world. External nature is not a given, but rather the result of an explicit procedure of externalization, which what one has decided not to take into account, or threatens the collective. See also enemy. You see, Carl Schmitt has the famous friend-enemy distinction. Okay, so now I'm going to read this. The temptation of globalization appears all the more irresistible in that ecological crises are translated most often to the disappearance of everything external to the human world. Every reserve for human action, every discharge by means of which one could, up to now, the delicious euphemism invented by economists, externalize actions. Okay, so I think he's saying that human action is externalized. I think that's just what he's. I think that's just what he's saying. I think that's what he means, which means that it's treated as the outside force. I guess. I think. This paradox has been. We'll just keep reading. It'll make sense. It'll probably make sense eventually. That's how Latour is. You just keep reading, and it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you just continue on. This paradox has been noted often. The concern for the environment begins at the moment when there is no more environment, no zone of reality in which we could causally rid ourselves of the consequences of human political, industrial, and economic life. Yeah, okay, yeah, I was right. Okay, yeah, I was right. Okay, I'm glad I got that. I thought I was wrong about that. I thought I was wrong. But I wasn't. I'm always right. We have already seen this argument in Jonas 1990 and in Sayre's famous War of Everyone Against Everything. I gotta read him. Oh my god. I'm so sad. Hi, Tikus. Hi. The historical importance of ecological crises stems not from a new concern with nature, but on the contrary, from the impossibility of continuing to imagine politics on one side and on the other a nature that would serve politics simultaneously as a standard, a foil, reserve, a resource, and a public dumping ground. Political philosophy abruptly finds itself confronted with the obligation to internalize the environment that it had viewed up to now as another world, a realm as distinct as a sublunary physics of the ancient Greeks could be before Galileo from the physics of heavens. Okay. Political philosophy abruptly finds itself confronted with the obligation to internalize the environment that it had viewed up to now as another world, a realm as distinct as the sublunary physics of the ancient Greeks could be before Galileo and the physics of the heaven. Okay. So is this saying that I assume sublunary means below the moon? Oh, no. No, it actually doesn't. Sublunary, uh, sorry,
Sublunary.
sublunary, sublunary physics is actually, um, what it actually is it is our world's physics. But the physics of the heavens is like quite literally it is belonging to another world, a distinct from ours. And so yeah. Okay. And we're also gonna take a look at externalize. I gotta stop. Gotta stop. Internalize. The exteriorization. Exteriorization. Okay, so it's just the opposite of that. Yeah. Thank you, Latour, for fucking explaining. Thank you for just being like, hey, just look at this other. Don't give any definition. Like, just look at this other's definition. Okay, so interiorization, I assume, is what I'm going to define it as is internalization, or interiorization is expressing that entities can be taken into account and play important roles. Or that, and so in this context, it would be nature nature is not separate. Maybe? I'm not sure. I think so, though. Let's see, 50, 59. Oh wait, I'm on 58. Sorry. Okay, I'm gonna reread this. I'm actually going to read. The historical importance of ecological crises stems not from a new concern with nature, but on the contrary, from the impossibility of continuing to imagine politics on one side, and on the other, a nature that would serve politics simultaneously as a standard, a foil, reserve, or resource in a public dumping ground. Okay, so I fucked myself up, and it was exactly what I thought it was, but I was confused and thought it could, like, literally be anything else, but it literally can't be. Like, okay. Okay, so I fucked myself up there. I confused myself. Yes. As human politics notices that it no longer has any reserve or dumping ground, we begin to see clearly is not we must at last concern ourselves seriously with nature as such, but on the contrary, that we can no longer leave the entire set of non-humans captive under the exclusive auspices of nature as such. In a few short decades, the assembly of humans is finding itself obliged to reconsider the initial division, and it is asking the other assembly, which has been meeting in secret for centuries, and whose political work has always been hidden up to now, to contribute its share. Everyone wants to find out in the name of what constitution humans and non-humans are required to meet separately. The former protected by the politics of power, the latter by the epistemology police. And if no written articles of law can be found, then people begin to clamor loud and long for a change in the form of public life, for the rewriting of a constitution better adapted to the new concerns. If we use the word collective in the singular, it is thus not in order to signal the same type of unity as the one implied by the term nature, and still less designate a utopian reconciliation between man and nature. Nature, in general, as we are all well aware, was in fact never stable, but always in the process of serving as a pendant to the irremediable breakup of the social and human world. Now, the word collective, it is precisely the work of collecting into a whole that I want to stress. The word to remind us of sewage systems or networks of small, medium, and large collectors make it possible to evacuate wastewater as well as to absorb the rain that falls on a large city. This metaphor of the cloaca maxima suits our needs perfectly along with the paraphernalia of abduction, sizing, purifying, stations, observation points, and manholes necessary to its upkeep. The more we associate materialities, institutions, technologies, skills, procedures, and slowdowns with the word collective, better its use will be. The hard labor necessary for the progressive and public composition of the future unity will be all the more visible. Oh, sorry, I blanked out. I was gonna look up something. It was gonna be Cloaca Maxima. Oh, how did I not know about this? The Cloaca. Well, I already did because I'm American. The Cloaca Maxima is a historical landmark in Rome. The Cloaca Maxima, as it was originally built to drain the rainwater from the city, or less often, Maxima Cloaca, is one of the world's earliest draining systems. Its name is related to that of Cloacina, a Roman goddess. I didn't know about that. Okay. If Wag was here, she'd yell at me. She'd yell at me for this. By the word collective in the singular, I therefore mean not the solution to the problem of the number of collectives, which I shall address only in Chapter 5, but simply the reactivation of a problem of progressive composition of the common world, a problem that the division into two houses of the old Constitution did not allow us even to begin to raise, since nature, prematurely unified, appeared to have resolved the problem once and for all. I have no idea whether there is just one collective, whether there are 3, several, 65, or an infinite number. I use the word only to mark a political philosophy in which there are no longer 2 major poles of attraction, one that would produce unity in the form of nature, another that would maintain multiplicity in the form of societies. The collective signifies everything, but not 2 separated. By taking an interest in the collective, we're going back to square one, considering how to recruit an assembly without continuing to worry about the ancient titles that sent some to sit in nature's ranks and others on society's benches. In the present chapter, I shall try to define the equipment of citizens, as it were, who are called to sit in a single assembly, whereas they had always before, to extend the metaphor, within a society of orders known as the nobility, the clergy, and the third estate. I am convinced that when these 2 houses are brought together, the effect for the future republic will be the same as those produced when in Versailles in 1789 the third estate, the nobility, and the clergy refused to sit separately and to vote for a vote by order. I don't know what this is. We're actually gonna look this up. Versailles, 1789. Vote. Third estate. Versailles, 1789. Nobility and clergy refuse to sit separately. State General 1789 was a General Assembly representing the French estates of the realm, the clergy, first estate, the nobility, second estate, and commoners, third estate. It was the last of the Estates General of the King of France, summoned by King Louis the 16th. The Estates General of 1789 ended, and the third estate, along with some members of the other estates from the National Assembly, against the wishes of the king, invited the other 2 estates to join. This signaled the outbreak of the French Revolution. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I was just confused about what this was. What this was exactly. But I see it now. Because Latour wants to join them all together. And so he's doing a Versailles 1789 moment. He's having a Versailles 1789 moment, is what he's saying. He is causing the French Revolution too, is what he's saying. While the revolutionary examples have their charm, still the constitutional upheavals of the past concerned humans alone. Now today's counter-revolutionary upheavals also concern non-humans. What then, for the associations of humans and non-humans, is the equivalent of the one man, one vote principle invented by my French ancestors when they refused to hold their sessions according to the divisions of the old regime? Here is the second difficulty that we shall have to resolve if we're going to learn how to convoke the collective. Hey, Lily. Will we have to go so far as to give non-humans voting rights? Yes. We do. One non-human, one vote. Such is the question raised in Stone 1985 and Stone 1987. The granting of speech to humans and non-humans is further complicated by the obvious difficulties of the collectives, persons, or corporate bodies. I am sure, Christopher Storm argues, that I can judge with more certainty and meaningfulness whether my lawn needs water than the Attorney General can judge whether and when the United States needs to take an appeal from an adverse judgment by the lower court. Stone's 1974, page 24. Also quoted in a marvelous little book by Miguel Taman, 2001. What are you on about, Lily? I'm not eating. I don't understand. I'm so confused. I'm literally confuzzled. I need only invoke this sort of difficulty to bring a dreadful specter into view. The obligation... Oh, okay, yeah. Munch. Yeah, I don't like eating in front of people. I actually don't like doing that. I actually eating is a very private matter for me. Because I'm neurotic. I need only invoke this sort of difficulty to bring a dreadful specter into view. The obligation to engage in metaphysics, that is, to define in turn how the pluriverse is furnished, and with what properties that members of the Republic must be endowed. I then fall into a painful contradiction. It is as if I had to define a metaphysics common to humans and non-humans, whereas I have rejected the nature-society distinction precisely because it imposed a particular metaphysics without due process, the metaphysics of nature. To choose a deliberately paradoxical expression, if, as so many ecological thinkers have invited us to do, we have to extricate ourselves from traditional metaphysics in order to embrace a different, less dualistic, more generous, warmer metaphysics, we shall never manage to draft a new constitution. For any metaphysics that has the disagreeable characteristics of leading to interminable disputes. I'm quite willing to reopen a public discussion that has been prohibited, but I cannot expect the debate to depend on prior agreement about the furnishing of the pluriverse, which is just what the kingly power that parceled out the primary qualities we all share, and the secondary qualities that divide us, sought to obtain on the cheap and without discussion. I want this common world to be achieved after the new constitution has been drafted, not before. So we find ourselves confronting a classic problem of bootstrapping. If we're going to be able to substitute the experimental metaphysics, we're talking about for the arbitrariness or the arbitrage of nature, we shall have to begin by defining a sort of vital minimum, a kind of metaphysical minimum wage that will allow us to make possible the convocation of the collective. Why would my readers want to abandon their own metaphysics to accept mine or those of ecological thinkers, whether deep or superficial? Why should they deprive themselves of the solid anchor they have in the metaphysics of physics? Fortunately, I do not need to erect one metaphysic to challenge another, and thereby prolong the interminable quarrel over the foundations of the universe. To reopen public discussion about the distribution of the primary and secondary qualities, we have simply to move from a warlike version of public life to a civil version. Political ecology does not bear at once on things and people. Indeed, what does bear mean? What does at once mean in things? In people? All these little words reach us on the move, trained, equipped, and ready to go up to the front in past battles that are no longer our own. In order to have them work for us, we have to convert them. As it is said in the weapons industry, the entire sector of military production is to be shifted to civilian purposes. I know what convoke means. I just want to see what it means definitionally. All together or some. Yeah, okay, yeah, it is. It is just a symbol of the collective. I thought that's what it just meant, but I was wondering if there's anything more to it than that. If there's any more connotations. We are going to show how humans and non-humans, provided they are no longer in a situation of civil war, can exchange properties in order to compose in common the raw material of the collective. Whereas the subject-object opposition had the goal of prohibiting any exchange of properties, the human-non-human pairing makes such an exchange not only desirable, but necessary. This pairing is what will make it possible to fill the collective with beings endowed with will, freedom, speech, and real existence. The common destiny of such beings will explain why political ecology cannot be developed through a simple juxtaposition of ecology and politics. Instead of a science of objects and a politics of subjects, at the end of the chapter, we should have at our disposal a political ecology of collective consisting of humans and non-humans. Less difficult than the previous chapter, and much less so than the following one. This chapter only requires only that readers not let themselves be shocked too quickly by the curious exchange of properties in which we are going to indulge. If our peaceful restructuring still appears surprising, it has to be compared to the contradictory roles that militarized objects were made to play under the old Constitution. Mute, they nevertheless had the capacity to speak by themselves. Amoral, they nevertheless dictated the most important of moralities to humans, the one that forces us to bow to the undeniable evidence of matters of facts. External to all human enterprise, they were nevertheless merged without the least difficulty, the intermediary of laboratories and industries into daily life. Inanimate, they nevertheless formed the animation, not to say the souls of all our bodies. They were invisible, yet scientists never lost sight of them. They were inessential because they lacked speech and values, yet they formed the very essence of reality in defining the common world. They were indifferent to our passions, yet they made all the difference in the conflict waged by humans over passions. They were devoid of all will, yet their surreptitious action was what led poor human wretches to act. If the exchanges of competencies between humans and non-humans to which we are about to turn appear surprising, I have to ask my readers to be kind enough to keep on comparing their simplicity to the monstrous bric-a-brac that we have gotten into the habit of calling, a bit too hastily, reasonable and self-evident. I must ask them to recall that we are leaving the soldiers in their barracks and that we are speaking only of the civil life of humans and non-humans. Ah. Fuck, that was good. That was good. The first two sections were kind of just... The first section was kind of a recap of this section. Of the last section, I mean. Or the last chapter, I mean. And then this one was... There's a bit more to that than in the first section. But then the actual first section, the first, like, titled section that wasn't just the chapter heading... what's going on about what we'll be talking about in this, and I'm very excited about this. Very, very excited. Very, very excited. That was good. 10 out of 10 would rate. Would read again. I'm trying to figure out what to say. I guess what are the questions? What are the questions? So what are the difficulties? My brain is fried. But what are the difficulties? Fuck, I'm having such a hard time right now, guys. Guys, the pollen is getting to me, guys. The pollen is getting to me. That's another thing. If anyone wants to come on, they can. If anyone has any questions, just ask. I think we're just gonna end stream because I don't know. It's fine. I don't need to explain. Latour speaks for himself. This first chapter, like, it didn't need much explanation. I explained what, like, should have been explained. A lot of Latour is just kind of doing groundwork in his own books. He likes to lay the groundwork in his own books and not, like, leave anything up to, like, he discusses everything he wants to go over already. At least a good part of it, and so it's kind of hard to add a lot to Latour besides just a reading. So, if anyone has any questions, just ask. But if no one does, I'll just end the stream. If people want to come into VC, that's also fine. But otherwise, that's chicken wrap. Or something. I don't know. I'll give you guys a few more minutes to give you guys a little bit more time. Then I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go work more on the server and stuff. Try to figure shit out. And I'm gonna go feed my cats because I've been starving them. Because I've been starving you. You guys are so hungry, aren't you? Yes, you are. You're so hungry. You guys haven't been fed for days. For days, I know. It's been so long. It's been so long. Not really. No, I would never miss to feed you guys. I would never miss to feed you guys. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. I would always feed you guys on time. I love you. Because you're my little babies. My little baby. You're my little children. Yeah, are you gonna mute my mic for me? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Well, I assume no one has any questions, so I am going to end the stream. Yep. Yippee. Hey, baby. Real baby kitty.